Morning, everyone. Am I streaming? I haven't done this for a long time, so I'm not very confident, but I'm just going to start and hope that there are some people watching. Just like the title says, I don't know how long we have, so I'm just going to start reading the book that is now available that I've just published on Amazon. Introduction. Becoming a parent will change you more than anything else you're likely to experience. If people knew how much it would alter their lives, their priorities, and their personalities, many would not want to do it. Fortunately for the continuation of our species, most people think that they will be the exemption to the rule, the one person whose foundations will not be deeply shaken by the onset of parenthood. We'll be cool parents, they think to themselves. And so it was with me. If I'd been told that being a parent would change my brain chemistry so much that a children's cartoon about dogs could regularly bring me to tears, I simply would not have believed it. But it's not just me that has changed. The Australian cartoon series Bluey has changed the rules for what a TV series for preschoolers can be. My first child was born in 2019, and between the sleepless nights and endless feeds, I ended up watching a lot of television. This habit was exacerbated by the global pandemic in 2020, which kept us in our homes and put childcare and playgrounds on hiatus, leaving us with nothing at all to do all day except look at the same three faces, same four walls, and the colourful talking noise boxes that showed us the world outside. There's a comic in the book. Hold it up to the camera because I'm not doing a display share. Here we go. You see that? That's me and my daughter going past the swings on our daily pandemic walk. She's saying, "What's that?" I'm saying, "The park." She's saying, "Can we go one day?" Disney burst onto the entertainment streaming scene in March of that year, just in time to give us something new to watch. At first, it was The Simpsons and Futurama, but as my baby grew into a toddler and I grew tired of Peppa Pig, I began to peruse the catalogue of children's entertainment, looking for something age appropriate that would hold my child's attention while I was working from home. There's another comic now. You want a cartoon? And she's sitting under the table. I'd never heard of Bluey, but the Disney Plus homepage suggested it to me, and the 2D animation style appealed to my preferences as an illustrator. Upon watching the first episode out of the corner of one eye, I was charmed by the classical music in the soundtrack and the naturalistic voice performances, which, although they didn't share my accent, were at least not American, as so many other cartoons are. It was good enough for me to leave it on for a few more episodes, after which I learned that the two children in the show were in fact girls, not boys, and I eventually figured out that the magic xylophone in the first episode was not actually magic at all, but that it was only the commitment of the girl's father that maintained the illusion of magic. Bye. Soon enough, I was on the sofa with my 1-year-old, entranced by the 11th episode, Bike. During the final sequence, as Beethoven's Ode to Joy swelled, and the kids in the episode each persevered to overcome their personal challenges, which they had been ready to give up on moments ago. Tears filled my eyes, and I held my child tightly, baffled by how visceral my reaction was. When my mother came round later that day, I casually put on the Bike episode again to see if it would affect her in the same way, and I was again touched by the final sequence, holding back tears this time out of embarrassment. Because once kids learn to do something on their own, they don't need you to do it for them anymore, I said to her. And they never need you to do it for them again. And you get to see them go through that every day. This show isn't about childhood, it's about parenting. That was my first clumsy attempt at communicating to another adult the unique charm of the dog cartoon that had stolen my heart. The book you are reading now is my latest attempt. And there's another comic. I front-loaded the comics in this book because I knew that a lot of people would just flick through it and just read the comics. Here we go. Here we are on the sofa together. I drew cats so that I wouldn't be stepping on the intellectual property toes of Bluey by actually drawing the characters. Even my original characters do not steal. I'm just going to check the stream, see if there's anything else watching. Hey! Hey guys, you are watching. Link in the description. Buy the book, review the book, so I can get a good rating on Amazon. Now, 5 years on, I know that I was not the only one crying and hugging my child while watching Bluey. There were millions of us all over the world. Soon there would be a discussion threads, podcasts, Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade balloons, a stage show, a theme park, and my Bluey merch collection YouTube videos. And yet I've never found a comprehensive analysis of the show that truly captures what makes it so special. It is impossible for me to explain to other adults how much I love Bluey unless they've already watched it. Even when speaking to parents who love the series, I'm still hesitant to sound too dramatic about it. If I want to recommend it to a parent, I just tell them that it's a funny cartoon that their children will love and leave it at that. This book is the first time I've been able to fully express just how important Bluey is to me, and it won't make sense to most people. But I know there are Bluey fans who will understand and who will be waiting for an in-depth analysis of this series. So that to the devoted fans, episodes like Bike, Sleepy Time, Rain, and The Sign are regarded as impactful works of art, and for good reason. This book is for them. This book delves into the origins of Bluey, the minds responsible for its creation, and documents the impact the show has had on the world, and attempts to analyze exactly what makes it so beloved. As well as being a parent of small children, I am also an illustrator and an author who's made a lifelong hobby of studying psychology and storytelling in between devouring televisual programming. Therefore, Bluey happens to land precisely on the nexus where many of my interests intersect, which grants me some insight into the subject. At the time of writing, in autumn of 2025, there are 3 seasons of Bluey, each comprising 52 episodes, as well as 20 miniature episodes. A feature-length Bluey movie has been officially announced and promised to be released in the summer of 2027. The possibility of a 4th season is uncertain at the moment, and it is this author's personal opinion that there should not be one. Therefore, the time is right for a thorough analysis of Bluey as a cartoon series, from start to finish, how it changed the world, and how the series itself has changed. I have another comic. The tail's touching. Creating Bluey. Joe Brum. Unlike cinema, where the creative control. Oh no, I just found my first typo. Unlike cinema, where the direct image. We'll have to change that. Unlike cinema, where the director has creative control, television typically relies on the lead writer's artistic vision. Without the hard work and talent of dozens of people, Bluey could not exist as we know it. But it is the brilliance of the writing in Bluey, its characters, story, and dialogue, that is the focus of this book, and that is why this book emphasizes the contribution of Joe Brum over the other cast and crew members. Joseph Brum was born in Winton, Queensland, the second of 3 sons. When his father decided that the boys were old enough, he took them with him on a work trip to the outback, where the boys were left to explore the bush, unsupervised, every day for a week. On this trip, a blue heeler dog named Bandit broke into the food storage and ate all the Fruit Loop cereal that the boys had been looking forward to eating. Nonetheless, this trip was a highlight of Brum's childhood. His family later moved to Brisbane. Throughout his childhood, his family had dogs as pets, including a red Kelpie named Rusty. After graduating from Griffith University in 1998 with a degree in animation, Brum moved to London and worked on children's cartoons, including Charlie and Lola and Bernard Holly's Kingdom. In 2009, he moved back to Brisbane. Then in 2011, he used a baby bonus, a bursary from the Australian government, from the birth of his first child, to start his own animation company, Studio Joho. It was co-founded with fellow Charlie and Lola animator Mark Patterson. Together with a small team of animators, they provided short comedy skits for the likes of College Humor. Some of these shorts are currently available on the Studio Joho YouTube channel. While the quality of the animation is high, there's little in them that would suggest that this company would go on to create heartfelt children's programming. Brum's short film Causes is a rare instance of a pre-Bluey animation that was written and directed by Brum himself. It is a hand-drawn animation that combines a simple cartoon style with a more mature artistic presentation and adult themes. Brum's first script for a cartoon about kids was more of a Peppa Pig parody with a cynical edge. When he watched The Letdown, an Australian dramedy, comedic drama, broadcast in 2016 about the chaotic life of a couple with a newborn baby, Brum scrapped his cartoon idea because it would be too similar. Indeed, the second episode of The Letdown bears some resemblance to the Bluey episode Baby Race. "She's failing Mother's Group. She's the best looking, but she's the worst one there," the mum opines about her baby's difficulty sleeping. "It's not a competition," assures the dad. "Yeah, that's what losers say." An actor from The Letdown, Patrick Brennan, went on to be the voice of Uncle Rad in Bluey. 2016 pilot. In 2016, Brum developed a concept for his own animated TV series and put his Studio Joho team to work on a 1-minute pilot for Bluey, between working on commissions. The scene features a blue dog named Bluey playing on a swing, being pushed by her father, who is distracted by his smartphone. The world established in this short animation is recognizably our own real world, complete with uncooperative pushchairs, addictive smartphone games, and kids who are oblivious to the mundane battles that their parents are facing at any given moment. The two background characters, who fans would now recognize as Rusty and Mackenzie, are different breeds of dog to Bluey and her dad. Mackenzie was inspired by the border collies from the comic strip Foot Flats. The dogs don't wear clothes, but in every other way they behave like humans, more so even than human characters in most children's shows. Brum has explained these design choices in interviews. While in London, he had witnessed the massive success of Peppa Pig, and he recognised the merits that set it apart from other children's television of the time. Peppa Pig is a cartoon that children love, and which their parents find gently amusing. The dialogue and narration are peppered with ironic remarks, often playing with the simple, childlike view of the world that the show portrays. In interviews, Brum has observed that Peppa Pig, the series, and the character, is unapologetically British. The sensibilities and cultural touchpoints are those of a typical English family, and many of the minor characters have broad regional accents from all over the country. Brum has said that he wanted to transplant that Peppa Pig formula into an Australian context, which is why for his main character he chose an Australian breed of dog, the Blue Heeler. However, rather than duplicating the world of Peppa Pig in his show, he made it a world of dogs instead. Stumpy dogs, little dogs, fluffy dogs, but never a generic cartoon dog. Every dog in Bluey has a breed that the character designers have had in mind for the character. 2017 pilot. Based on the strength of this 1 minute animation, the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, ABC, gave Brum, in partnership with Ludo Studios, 20,000 Australian dollars to make a full-length, 7-minute pilot. This episode, which would go on to become Season 1, Episode 6, The Weekend, introduced the entire Heeler household. Bluey's younger sister, a red Heeler dog called Bingo, Bluey's mum, a red Heeler dog called Chili, and the father from the first pilot, whose name is Bandit. Bandit is voiced by David McCormack, frontman of Brisbane rock band Custard. In this pilot, and henceforth alongside actress Melanie Zanetti voicing Chili. The voices of Bluey and Bingo are a well-kept secret. Both this pilot and the 2016 pilot used music by Custard for their introduction sequences. Brum has said that he modelled the family after his own family, which is why he wanted Bluey and Bingo to both be girls, as opposed to the tried and true television formula of one boy and one girl. He wanted to write about the way his daughters played, which he had first-hand experience of after working from home for 4 years, and to stay faithful to that experience. Brum's commitment to writing from his own life paid off, resulting in a grounded world and a cast of charming characters in scenarios that real families could relate to. The ABC thought this pilot was promising and commissioned 52 episodes for the first season. BBC Studios, the international division of the British Broadcasting Corporation, also contributed 30% of the funding in exchange for distribution and merchandising rights outside of Australia and New Zealand. Let me check on the stream. How are you all doing today? Are you up early or are you from a different country? Let me know how you're doing. Season 1. With the funding from ABC and BBC, Ludo was able to further polish the animation, giving us the rounded yet square art design that is now inseparable from Bluey. Brum has described the animation of Season 1 as like World War I, due to how much work there was to do between a small team of animators, creating one episode per week. The first episode of Season 1, Magic Xylophone, was broadcast on the 1st of October 2018 on ABC Kids. Brum is the sole credited writer on all 26 of the first run of episodes, broadcast on ABC Kids in 2018. In 2019, the remaining 26 episodes of the season joined the broadcasting schedule. More characters were introduced to the show, including Uncle Stripe, Aunt Trixie, and younger cousins Muffin and Socks. Grandparents Chris and Bob, and many neighbours and friends of Bluey's. These characters also reflect Brum's own family, while with Bandit's brother Stripe even being voiced by Joe Brum's brother, Dan Brum, who, like Stripe, is the father of 2 daughters. Likewise, Bandit's mother is voiced by Brum's real-life mother and named after her. Another connection to the real-life Brum family is Bandit's career as an archaeologist, which is the profession of Joe Brum's older brother, Adam Brum. It has also been pointed out that it is appropriate for dogs to have a job that involves digging up bones, which could also be said of Chili's job in the airport security, where dogs work in real life. Writing. Every episode of Bluey credits Joe Brum as the writer, with some also crediting additional writers. This continued to be the case for all episodes of Bluey to date. The plot lines in Season 1 are mostly based around games, with the title of each episode being the name of the main game of that episode. Hospital, Keepy Uppy, Daddy Robot, etc. The games are not typically structured rule-based games of the type that adults teach children to play, but spontaneous, imaginative games that involve pretend and role-play elements. The characters often mimic things they've seen in the real world and pick up on odd details, which are a natural source of laughs for the adults watching. For example, when the children play doctors, it's not an outdated, idealized experience, like the home visit from Dr. Brown Bear in Peppa Pig. It's a game about a waiting room full of people who are triaged according to the severity of their condition. This is a rich source of jokes for the older audience who have had first-hand experience of these mundane activities. It's funny to see how many nuances of adult life that Bluey and her friends have picked up on, and to hear them saying grown-up turns of phrase, often imperfectly, like when Bluey says, "I'm sure we can squeeze you in tightly," while role-playing the doctor's receptionist. In each episode, the children playing results in some kind of conflict or difficulty, which becomes the catalyst for one or more of the characters to learn something or grow somehow. And it often isn't just the kids who have something to learn. This is a basic structure of most stories, but Joe Brum takes this formula seriously when he's plotting out episodes. In a few interviews, Brum cites the American comedy series Community as an influence on Bluey, calling it one of the best written shows on television. On the face of it, this is a surprising link, since Community is known for its dark, cynical humour and characters who are often mean-spirited and not politically correct. However, it's Community's commitment to the mechanics of story structure and character growth that Brum mentioned as an influence on his writing style. The creator and showrunner of Community, Dan Harmon, has described the basic elements that he uses in every TV episode or film that he writes, calling it a story circle, which is a simplification of the well-known hero's journey or monomyth structure, which detailed by Professor of Literature Joseph Campbell. For a summary of the hero's journey formulation, we need only look to Chili Healer description of a quest in the Season 3, Episode 8 of Bluey, Curry Quest. A quest is like a journey a hero goes on. Usually a hero starts at home. They're nice and comfortable, but then adventure calls. Usually the hero finds a reason not to go on the quest. But something always changes their mind, and so the quest begins. The hero is out in the wide world now. All sorts of challenges pop up. Sometimes the hero meets friends on the way. The friends often warn the hero of dangers ahead. After facing grave danger, the hero arrives at where they were going. Usually here, some secret is revealed, and the quest takes a turn. It's here that the true challenge of the quest is revealed. But just when things seem saddest, armed with everything they've learned along the way, the hero faces the ultimate test. The end. Of course, every element of this story structure can't be included in every story, especially not one lasting only 7 minutes. But Harmon's simplified story circle can be found in most episodes of Community and in Bluey. A character is in their zone of comfort, but they want something, so they enter an unfamiliar situation to which they have to adapt in order to get what they want. Yet they pay a heavy price for it before they return to their familiar situation, having changed. This is the this is the biggest comic in the book. It's actually like eight micro comics. Let's have a look here. So that's the wheel, and it goes round like this. You'll have to buy the book if you want to read it in its full. The story circle illustrated with a simple comic. The juvenile cat starts in a zone of comfort, playing with a toy bus. He sees a real bus and wants to ride in it. He boards the bus on his own. He overcomes the difficulty of the seat being too high for him. He has achieved the desired goal of riding the bus. He realizes that he is alone and far from home. He is reunited with his parent. He is braver and more confident than he was at the beginning of the story, while also appreciating the security of being close to his parent. This structure for stories requires the main cast of characters to be flawed people who have something to learn, which ends up making them more realistic and nuanced, and their willingness to grow makes them more likable. As for what ideas the series explores and how they come through in each episode, Brum has shared his writing process on the Gotta Be Done podcast. First, you have to figure out what you want to say. Then you've got to figure out, is this worth saying? And then you've got to figure out how to say it. And then you've got to figure out how to say it so it's funny. You've got to figure out, well, how do I not bore the parents? And how do I fit that all into 7 minutes? Backgrounds and voices. Episodes set outside the Healer house reveal that the Healer family lives in Brisbane. This is never explicitly stated, but the jacaranda trees and other landmarks are all clear indicators to anyone familiar with Brisbane. This allowed for the animation team to go out and draw backgrounds based on real locations, which contributes to the feel of specificity that is present throughout the world of Bluey. For example, when the healers go to the creek, it's not a generic wooded area drawn from the idea of what a creek should look like, amalgamated from dozens of wooded areas that the artists have seen. It's a real creek in Brisbane, which Brum visited as a child, with details specific to that location. In isolation, this attention to detail might not make a difference to an audience's enjoyment of the episode, but in animation, the small things add up. Even for viewers with no experience of Brisbane, there is still a sense of authenticity that comes from the backgrounds in Bluey. For example, the back seat of the healer's car is brimming with little details that make it look like a real car that belongs to a family with 2 young children. Bluey wears a seatbelt across her car seat, but Bingo's seat has a 5-point harness retention, as appropriate for her age. There are also nuts scattered everywhere and stickers placed randomly on surfaces. That same commitment to authenticity is also evident in the voices of the children in the show, who are not actors but the children of the crew. Although no details of the identities are known to the public, the voices of Bluey and Bingo seem to be recorded by 2 real-life sisters, based on the similarity of their voices. Their laughter is not forced, but real squeals of joy is recorded. Recorded candidly, after tickling the children or otherwise making them laugh. Music. Ludo commissioned an original soundtrack by composer Jonathan "Joff" Bush, including theme music for the opening sequence. Bush also arranged classical pieces for the soundtrack, using melodies by Mozart, Beethoven, Holst, Strauss, and Debussy, often with novel instruments and a drum track. Almost every episode's soundtrack is entirely unique to that episode, which is not the standard for television, and especially not in children's television, with the notable exception of Charlie and Lola, which also used classical music in its soundtrack as a budget-friendly way to add musical variety to each episode. When music is reused, it's often a leitmotif, a technique of composition where a melody is associated with a certain character or location, such as the Granny's syncopated theme, which comes back every time Bluey and Bingo dress up as grannies. If it's not already obvious, I like this show too much. The music in each episode helps to energize the fun parts and breathes feeling into the heartfelt moments, more than many viewers will realize. Although the writers and animators of Bluey deserve all the praise they get, the contribution of Geoff Bush and his team cannot be overstated. Bush's voice can be heard in many of his compositions, whistling and singing na 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 in the soundtrack for Army, for example. Oh no, that's a na na. I went to the trouble of writing all these na 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 na. What for Army? How they na 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 na. Because Army, for example, and he plays many of the instruments himself rather than using a synthesizer. I should have said MIDI there. A synthesized using a MIDI. Do people know what a MIDI is? MIDI. If you know what, I don't know whether to write this for people who know about music or people who don't. Well, by synthesizer, what I mean is MIDI. He doesn't use a MIDI for instruments. He just he records himself playing the instrument and edits that together. He appears in dog form in episode 20, Markets, as a musician who Indy gives $5 to. He's named Busker in the credits, but it's not clear if that's his name or just a description. Thereafter, the same busker can be seen in the background of other episodes, busking in dance mode, with $5 from Indy still in his hat, and DJing the wedding in the sign, again voiced by Bush. He's also I didn't write this in the book, he's also in the Bluey short alongside, where he is Honey's music teacher. So he gets around. He's not just a DJ and a busker. He's also a, a tutor of music. Let me just check if we got any comments. Oh, thanks for all the messages, everyone. Keepy Uppy song is wonderful. Yeah, it is. Um, everything in Bluey is wonderful. You're never going to hear me disagree with that. My wife and I regularly channel the grannies in nice parking spot, Rita. It's funny. It's a good line. It's a funny episode. Reception. The combination of characters, story, art design, music, and comedy won the hearts of the Australian population. Within its first year, the series had amassed over 150 million views on ABC's streaming service iView, making it the most frequently downloaded series in the ABC's history by March 2019. Using IMDb ratings as a rough indicator of general audience opinion, the best received episodes were Bike, The Creek, Camping, and Bumpy and the Wise Old Wolfhound, which are all rated 9 and above out of 10. Among the more modestly rated episodes, there are no obvious outliers. Horsey Ride, Shops, Spy Game, and Chicken Rat are the lowest rated episodes by a narrow margin. In 2019, Bluey won its first Logie Award, an annual award for Australian magazine TV Week, for Most Outstanding Children's Programme. The series would later go on to win this award again in 2022. Disney. In 2019, Disney began to broadcast and stream season 1 of Bluey in non-Australian territories on Disney Junior channels, making it available in the US for the first time. There was some suggestion that Disney might redub the voice acting with American accents to the US audience, but this never went ahead, to the relief of Joe Brum and Australian fans, who delight in American children learning to say mum instead of mom, and saying dunny for toilet. My children say dunny all the time. And I don't know whether to find it obnoxious or endearing. However, some words like capsicum, thongs, and flog have been changed in some regions outside of Australia. We're gonna flog. Oh, that was from The Decider, if you know the episode. We're gonna flog you was not deemed appropriate for American audiences for some reason. Disney facilitated the redubbing of Bluey into 20 other languages. Oh, also Dingleberries. That was a good one. Dingleberries from the episode Relax. Apparently in Australia it just means like, oh, you knucklehead, you dingleberry, but it means something specific in some regions of the world. I'm not going to say what it is, but it's toilet related. It's also something that dogs get a lot. Dingleberries. It's something an affliction that many dogs have. So it is appropriate that it would be, the dogs would say it. Disney facilitated the redubbing of Bluey into 20 other languages, all of which use adult voice actors for the child characters, which many fans regard as a misstep. When I say in this book, when I say many fans, I'm talking about me and other people. I'm basically writing my own opinion, but with many fans as a cover. Many fans regard this as a misstep. Disney also censored some episodes on Disney Plus and Disney Junior to remove some instances of toilet humor and groin strikes, as well as some dialogue that was deemed inappropriate for children, such as Chili saying "lover boy" and Bandit talking candidly about family planning with his friend in the episode Perfect. I'm keen to get it done, but Chili, she wants to keep her options open. Do we really want more of these things running around? Disney also removed an entire episode of season 2, Dad Baby. No one has issued a statement to explain this decision, but something about Bandit pretending to be pregnant and to give birth was not considered to be appropriate for Disney's brand. Perhaps in defiance of this, the official Bluey YouTube channel made the episode available in its entirety in high definition, along with a selection of other episodes and clips. Episode note: Dad Baby contains one of my favourite lines of dialogue in Bluey. When the healer's neighbour is enlisted to take part in the Dad Baby game, he has to abandon the cricket match that he was watching, and he instructs his son to shout if there's a wicket, which is exactly the kind of thing my dad would say when I was growing up. Excuse me. In an instance of UK-specific censorship, BBC removed a scene from the episode Fruit Bat to protect children from seeing Bluey sliding around on a wet bathroom tiles on her belly. Watch together. Oh dear. Oh, it's too early. Anyone watching this back? It's 6:20 a.m. The baby woke me up at 5, and I thought I was too excited about my book launch to go back to sleep, so that's why I'm out of bed. Watch together. Modern parents have a love-hate relationship with cartoons and screen devices. Toddlers and children are easily placated by colourful, energetic cartoons, providing a much-needed break for parents, but many have concerns about what screen time may be doing for their children's development. Some research suggests that parents and caregivers watching screen together with the child may offset the negative effects of screen time, or even make it into a beneficial experience for the child. Whether Brom was aware of the science behind it or not, he managed to create a show that parents love to watch with their children, while also picking up on an audience of adolescents and childless adults. Bob Bilby. In Season 1, Episode 12, Bob Bilby. Bob Bilby dramatizes a common family experience of bringing home the class mascot for a weekend. In Bingo's case, a Bilby puppet named Bob. This rite of passage involves adding photographs of the family's activities to the class's scrapbook, which documents all of Bob's visits. Unfortunately, the healers spend most of their time with Bob, watching television and playing video games. And Bingo becomes upset when she compares her family's photos to the photos taken of Bob visiting her classmates. These are all just of Bob watching cartoons, says Bluey. It doesn't look like he's having much fun. This is the most boring time Bob has had in the whole book, Bingo despairs. The photos are a wake-up call for the parents, Bandit and Chili. Although they presumably don't have the same empathy for the hand puppet that Bingo does, they look sheepish when confronted with the photos because they failed their children, both by letting them have too much screen time and by allowing themselves to be absorbed in their own screens. The parents' feeling of inadequacy from letting their children down closely mirrors Bingo's distress over giving Bob a disappointing weekend. By the end of the episode, when the healers have found lots of fun activities to do in the nick of time, the whole family has enjoyed themselves. It's a small victory that the characters share in, but it's also a heartwarming story that gives everyone in the audience something to appreciate, and the original score by Geoff Bush elevates the sense of the family's closeness at the final act. For the little kids watching, Bob is a real character in the episode, but older viewers who understand that Bob is an inanimate toy can still enjoy the story in their own way. Joe Brum has cited the British comedy series Gavin and Stacey as one inspiration for Bluey, specifically in the way that the series appeals to a multi-generational audience. Parents and other adults enjoy Bluey because it's a well-made, amusing series, but the really clever thing about Bluey is that many episodes, like Bob Bilby, work on two levels simultaneously. One level that the children can understand and enjoy, and an additional optional level that's there more for mature viewers. Constructing a multi-layered narrative like this, with each layer having an engaging conflict and a satisfying resolution, is not trivial. The writers and storyboard artists on Bluey and other TV shows often go through multiple rewrites to get the story right, and many good story ideas get discarded along the way because they just don't work for one reason or another. Yet Brum and his co-writers have apparently mastered the watch together experience. Not every episode follows this multi-layered format, but many do, and the ones that do are as well made as any episode of The Simpsons at its peak. Episode note. There is one moment in Bob Bilby that has left grown-up fans slightly baffled. When the mum Chili gets the bike out to take Bob Bilby and the kids for a ride, she says, "Are you ready, Bob?" in a husky whisper that could be called seductive. This provides an opportunity for a visual gag with the camera that Bandit is holding suddenly going off while he gawks at his wife. But why did Chili say it like that? No one has yet given a compelling answer beyond Chili just joking around with Bandit. BBQ, barbecue. In the Season 1, Episode 7 barbecue, Bluey, Bingo, and Muffin stage a pretend barbecue to pass the time while they wait for their food at the real barbecue. Bluey mimics her father and flips pretend sausages, while Bingo mimics her mother, running around in a panic, gathering ingredients for a pretend salad. When the real food is finally ready at the end of the episode, the whole family sits down to eat, and Bingo exclaims, "Isn't anyone going to mention the salad?" Giving voice to parents everywhere who feel unappreciated after the work they do for their families goes without acknowledgement. So often we hear parents complain of being overburdened, while it's tempting to jump to the conclusion that they are asking for help. In many cases, they would be satisfied with recognition and praise. This insight is kept light-hearted in the episode, but the implications in the real world can be serious if someone in a relationship feels unseen and unrewarded for their hard work repeatedly for years. Whether it happens in a marriage, a family, or any kind of relationship. For someone who recognizes this dynamic, Bingo's repeated failed attempts to sit down and relax is a familiar situation. But kids watching are more likely to enjoy Bingo getting covered in mud and spraying her uncle with a garden hose. This episode is a perfect example of how Bluey works as a watch-together experience. The animation, soundtrack, and voice acting can be enjoyed by both adults and children, but the meaning of the story in each episode often differs wildly depending on who's watching. Hammer Barn. The same goes for Season 2, Episode 2, Hammer Barn, which takes place in a large hardware home store. The episode starts with Bandit feeling envious of his neighbor's new outdoor pizza oven, which results in the Healer family visiting Hammer Barn so that Bandit can get one too. Bluey and Bingo ride in the shopping trolley, each taking ownership of items their mum puts on their side. As they become envious of each other's hoards, they unknowingly act out the exact dynamic of middle-class rivalry that brought their father to Hammerbarn to begin with. The episode is about the children's experience of Hammerbarn, but we once again see Bluey and Bingo grappling with social nuances that their parents and many real adults have yet to master. When Chili puts two garden gnomes in the trolley, the girls each claim one to be their husbands. Bluey: Mum, Bingo's husband is better than mine. Chili: Just try to be happy with what you've got, okay? Bluey: I can't be happy with what I got when what she's got is better. This culminates in a line of dialogue that makes adults laugh. When one of the gnomes falls out of the trolley and smashes, Chili exclaims, "This is what happens when you're unhappy with what you've got. Somebody's husband eventually gets it." Episode note. Should I do an Australian accent for these quotes? Just leave a message in the chat and I'll do a stupid Australian accent. Episode note. This episode led to Bunnings, the real-life Hammer Barn, to partner with Ludo to sell a limited run of garden gnomes designed to look like the Healer's gnomes, or technically gnome-dog hybrids, since all humanoid characters in Bluey have canine characteristics. Takeaway. Season 1, Episode 14, Takeaway, was a risky undertaking, according to Joe Brumm, as it was the first episode he pitched where the focus of the episode was on an adult character, Bandit, and no one knew if the children in the audience would find it engaging enough. Children are supposed to be the star of the show in this kind of series. Nonetheless, Takeaway was well received and it paved the way for more adult-focused episodes in the future. As well as the adult point of view of the episode, Takeaway also appeals to some mature viewers in another notable way. The format of Takeaway shares similarities with an episode of the American sitcom Seinfeld called The Chinese Restaurant. Both Takeaway and The Chinese Restaurant play out in real time, with three characters waiting in a single location for the entire duration. In Takeaway, the healers are waiting for their food to be ready, but in Seinfeld they're waiting to be seated at a restaurant. In both Takeaway and The Chinese Restaurant, each of the three characters has their own individual mini-drama going on, which all intersect, building to a chaotic furore in the final act. The similarity in format, which is known as the bottle episode, because it takes place in a single location, thus saving the production time and money, is likely not a coincidence. Seinfeld was a very popular series in the 90s, and it was broadcast at prime time in Australia for a number of years, during which Brum would have been a teenager. There's a technique in filmmaking called lamp shading, whereby you can reference another film or copy something from it, while signaling to the audience that you're doing it intentionally, honoring the original source material. The way you do it is by including a subtle detail, like a lampshade or a poster in the background, that points towards the material you're referencing. It's a bit of fun for the audience who understand the reference, and it's considered basic courtesy from one filmmaker to another. In the case of Takeaway, the lampshade is the fact that it's a Chinese restaurant specifically, which all but confirms the homage to Seinfeld. Although in fact the Golden Crown restaurant was based on a real-life Chinese restaurant in Brisbane. It closed in 2021 but lives on as an attraction at Bluey's World Park. I emailed Joe Brom to find out if this was I'm almost certain that the that this episode references Seinfeld, but I'm not actually sure because it's never been confirmed. Just like the child-parent parallel layers in the episodes, the existence of the media reference layer does not subtract from the experience of watching the episode without knowing the references, without knowledge of the references. I spoke with quite a lot of just pointlessly verbose language because that's just how I write normally. But I got one note from one of my readers said that um, probably the content of the book is actually accessible to a younger audience, but they might be gatekept by there being just a lot of long words. So I've tried to take it out, but it's a little bit like that sentence there is a bit grown up. Camping. Many adult viewers will be unaware that Season 1, Episode 43, Camping, is an homage to a famous episode of Star Trek, The Next Generation, called Darmok. In Darmok, Jean-Luc Picard must team up with an alien whose language he can't understand to survive in the wilderness and defeat a monstrous alien creature. In Camping, Bluey makes friends with a dog who can only speak French, and they invent a game together in which they build a makeshift shelter and try to trap a wild boar bandit. Like Seinfeld, The Next Generation was a popular TV series in the 90s when Brum was a teenager. The name of Bluey's friend is Jean-Luc, which lampshades the reference to Star Trek. Episode note. In Camping, Jean-Luc speaks French in every language dub of Bluey, except in the French dub where he speaks English and his name is Johnny. As an Anglophone who doesn't speak French, it's mildly interesting to watch Camping with a French audio, being able to understand Jean-Luc's dialogue, but no one else's, as if you're experiencing the episode from his point of view. Thus, there are references to other media littered throughout Bluey, but the last one included here is the chaotic final act of Season 2, Episode 22, Bus. Though the bus is only a pretend bus made of a chair, a hula hoop, and a bell taped to the banister, this episode is exciting enough to make my children jump up and down on the sofa. When Bingo steals the brake pedal, the bus cannot slow down, and Chili seizes control of the steering wheel. Bandit stands beside her with his hands braced against her seat back and the dashboard, in a pose that is recognizable to anyone who has seen the 1994 film Speed, in which Keanu Reeves' character stands that way on a bus for much of the screen time. In Speed, the bus is rigged to explode if it slows below 50 miles an hour. You know the pose I'm talking about? He's going like, it's like his hand is here on the dashboard and it's like his other arm is back here, but he's like leaning forward. It's like, if you see it side by side, it's undeniable. This reference was confirmed by Bluey's lead background artist, Nick Reese, who shared his poster design for Bus in the style of the Speed movie poster. The tagline reads, "The wheels on the bus go round and round." Bluey contains these media references not for the sake of the children watching, but for the adults watching, and probably for the sake of the creative team themselves, who want to use their work to celebrate the film and TV that they love. For the same reason, they make many subtle references to past episodes of Bluey, which also serve to make the show more realistic, as well as rewarding fans who've been paying attention. Sometimes the references are not so subtle, such as in Show and Tell, when Bandit describes the plot of the episode to Tina. Bumpy and the Wise Old Wolfhound. The last example of mature subtext that I will give is in Season 1, Episode 32, Bumpy and the Wise Old Wolfhound. The episode takes place on two narrative layers, with the framing device being Bingo in hospital, suffering from an unnamed ailment. Fans have speculated that it could be related to celiac disease due to a reference to one of the sisters having a gluten-free lunch in the episode Daddy Drop-Off. Her mother, Chili, is there to take care of her. Most of the episode takes place in the recording that the characters at home have made for Bingo to cheer her up. Performance of a story they call Bumpy and the Wise Old Wolfhound, which is in fact based on the famous Buddhist parable of Kisagotami. The parable teaches that though it's hard to accept sickness and death, it is an unavoidable part of life for everyone. This is the message that Bingo's family wanted to give her, along with an amusing distraction. However, if we compare the Bumpy and the Wise Old Wolfhound story, or the story of Kisagotami, to the situation Bingo is in, it is in fact Chili who is in the position of the leading role. In this sense, the family's encouraging message is more poignant for Chili than Bingo, whether that was the family's intention or not. After noticing this, the episode becomes much sadder to watch. For Bingo, the experience of being seriously ill is not fun, to say the least, and being in hospital is unfamiliar and frightening, but she at least has her mother with her to comfort her and to help her through it. Meanwhile, Chili is carrying her own burden. Though Chili is not herself unwell, she needs to watch her daughter suffering, knowing she's powerless to take it away. All Chili can do is put on a brave face and be a source of comfort for Bingo, but the only relief for her from her anxiety is stoic acceptance of the situation, as the Kisagotami parable teaches. Joe Brumm has said that he wrote this episode based on the experience of his own child being in hospital, which would mean that he was in Chili's place in Bumpy and the Wise Old Wolfhound. This made the production process difficult for Brumm, as it required him to draw from some painful memories. I'm just going to check on the chat, see if anyone wants me to do the Australian accent. Yeah, of course you do. Obviously you do. Full on bogan on the accent, but I don't know what bogan means. Full on bogan. I like that hat, mate. I like that hat, mate. That's my Australian accent. After the completion of season 1, ABC renewed Bluey for another 52-episode season, and Ludo Studios got right back to work. While making the first season, they had been trying to endear Bluey to the Australian families. But now that Bluey was the most popular series on Australian television, they knew that millions would be watching whatever they made next. Ludo hired more animators to the team to alleviate the workload, but in addition to the strict one episode per week schedule, there were also merchandise and toys to manage now. Season 2 began broadcasting on BBC Kids in March 2020, alongside reruns from the first season. Muffin Cone. In Season 2, Episode 39, Muffin Cone, Bluey's cousin Muffin is forced to wear a cone around her head to prevent her from sucking her thumb. The cone proves to be an obstacle to Bluey and Bingo's game, so they ask Muffin to take off the cone to resist the temptation to suck her thumb, but Muffin lacks the self-control. This amusing situation is the central drama of the episode, but in the background, Muffin's mother Trixie is wrestling with the lure of unhealthy food, which is a temptation that many adults can relate to all too well. It's a bit of tough love, that's all, says Trixie. All she needs to do is not put her thumb in her mouth. It's easy. Chips, offers Chili. No, I'm off the chips, trying to be healthy. When we next see the adults, Trixie is stuffing chips in her mouth and begs Chili to take them away from her so she can stop eating them. It's a light-hearted story, but there are serious real-world implications of the struggle with vices as adults. As parents, we enforce rules on our children which are frustrating for them, but which benefit them in the long term. And yet, parents are far from immune to giving in to pleasures that we know are unhealthy or unproductive. Unhealthy diet, impulsive spending, or excessive time spent on devices, etc. Relying on willpower alone rarely succeeds for long because when it comes down to it, we're not much better than Muffin and her inability to keep her thumb out of her mouth. But what is the solution? What is the moral of the story? Brum has said that he specifically wanted to avoid making a series for teaching children, whether that be letters and numbers or moral lessons and manners. The characters in Bluey encounter problems and find ways to overcome them, but the lessons are not prescriptive. In Muffin Cone, Trixie's gluttony for chips helps her to empathize with Muffin's thumb-sucking habit, but there's no neat solution at the end. It's never made explicit whether Trixie's tough love parenting is good or bad. The episode approaches the scenario and explores the episode approaches the scenario, explores it from multiple angles, and the viewer is left to engage with the questions posed as much or as little as they like. Christmas Swim. Ever since the release of Shrek in 2001, and probably long before then too, having something for the adults in children's media is usually a euphemism for oblique sexual references that are humorous for the adults watching, but go completely over the heads of children. This is a shame because there's so much more that children's media can offer adults beyond bawdy humour. In Season 2, Episode 51, Christmas Swim, Trixie says that she's going to make gravy from a packet, and her mother-in-law breezily puts down the suggestion and offers to do a proper one. The look of silent forbearance on Trixie's face will certainly go unnoticed by most children watching if they register the interaction at all. The stereotypical dynamic between a woman and her mother-in-law, as well as the difference between gravy made from a packet and gravy made properly, are completely foreign to the world of children, but immediately recognizable to adults. A series of screenshots capturing this 5-second exchange is one of the highest rated posts on our Bluey, a community celebrating Bluey, as we shall see in the following chapter. But it's just one moment among hundreds scattered throughout the series that has parents chuckling while their children wonder what's funny. Flat pack. Oh, I can hear someone's awake. Alright, I'm gonna go upstairs. Buy the book, link in the description. It's just £1, $1, €1. Just leave a review, please. I'll give you a kiss on the head. Please review the book. Thank you for watching. Mwah.